I also like the ending shots. Boy, I will talk about them to death. Because I was surprised. I was quite surprised by how, like, immaculate. It's like, okay, they're gonna do, like, this grand sweep into, Frankenstein, dying at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert, but I guess you could already guess he dies at the end of the movie.
Yeah,
but
franchise.
And then, like, the two of them walking off into the sunset was done in the way that I wouldn't have imagined they would have done at this point. And I was, like, really surprised.
Cinematic fantastic.
Fatu, Barada, Mikto.
I'll show you who I am and what I am.
Bitten by a werewolf and lives, becomes a werewolf himself.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to the Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Weatherford.
And your other host, William Weatherford.
Get ready for opinions, dad jokes,
and bad jokes
as we watch and review sci-fi and fantasy films from the classics of yesteryear to the new favorites of today.
Hey Dad, can I pick your brain about something?
Okay, what do you want to pick my brain about?
I want to pick it up and swap it out for an entirely new one, because today we are doing a Cinematic Fantastic episode 38. We're on the final stretch toward the end of the second season.
Yes, we have very, very few episodes left to go, and we will sew this one up. That doesn't mean the adventure is over. It just means this season is over. But we'll be doing some other cool stuff as the rest of the year comes in.
Sure is the adventures of the Frankenstein saga is coming to a close with this movie, The Ghost of Frankenstein, which is the fourth movie in the series. We have covered Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, and now Ghost of Frankenstein is the last one in this saga of the monster's tale.
Yes. I really think that the first three in the Frankenstein series were actually really, really good. I mean, they still had those elements of it that made it, that made the early ones great. They kept it going even through Son of Frankenstein, and it still had that.
I like this movie. I really like this movie.
I want to know why, because it is very different. I mean, it doesn't have Boris Karloff anymore. It's got Lon Chaney's kind of doughy.
I know, like when people think
face
of Frankenstein, they think of Frankenstein 1931 with Boris Karloff. That was the person who invented the look. When they're thinking of the Bride of Frankenstein, they're thinking of the Bride of Frankenstein from the Bride of Frankenstein.
Right.
1937, I believe. Still, just Universal invented so much of what we have of Frankenstein. They invented Dracula with Bela Lugosi. Like, they invented, like, the Wolfman and, like, werewolf lore.
Yes.
Like, man.
But here's the thing.
You don't realize this, but that's what makes some of these, like, core movies just really special.
They are special, like, but I want you to...
The actor has gone away in this movie.
Yes.
But I still like this movie.
Boris Karloff's face, though, the way his cheeks are different. They're kind of more sallow and sunken.
In this movie,
and they look more corpse-like. And with Lon Chaney, he's got a little bit of baby fat on his face.
He's just constantly frowning.
Yeah, he is. He does smile. He smiles a little bit. There's a little girl character, and he smiles a little bit when she shows up. But other than that, not much. From what we see of Boris Karloff in the first movies, we had him actually emoting with his hands a lot more. He was actually smiling. He was actually groaning, making noises, using English words by the second movie.
And using English words by the second movie, but even still, that's sort of something that we've lost with Lon Chaney Jr.
Well, we lost it with Son.
It's his first time,
Son of Frankenstein, we kind of had
he got the lumbering part really correct.
Yes, he did, yeah.
And he got the, eyes are only, like, 11% open.
Right.
Really.
Heavily lidded eyes.
heavily lidded eyes. But the thing is, he is really frowning for most of this movie. He doesn't really smile. He doesn't make noises. I mean, sure, sometimes he gesticulates with his hands.
He makes a noise all right, which we'll talk about a little bit when we get to the plot part. Enough said about that till we get to it.
Let's not consider that even Frankenstein's monster in the first place.
Right. So whenever somebody thinks about what Frankenstein looks like in the modern era, they think of like Herman Munster from the Munsters, or a cartoon-looking Frankenstein, or Frankenberry, or whatever, and they don't have that sallow kind of sunken cheeks, and that kind of real kind of transfixing stare.
Lon Chaney Jr. was built.
I know.
He was built with more of those cheeks, man.
He was
built with. He's taller.
Well,
you can definitely
he is pretty
see
tall.
how Lon Chaney Jr. looms and leers over everyone else as compared to Boris Karloff was more along the height of the rest of them. I mean, even still, he's got platforms.
Well, if Boris Karloff was coming down,
platforms plus being like 6'5", Shaquille O'Neal height.
Okay, not quite, but I know what you mean. But if I saw Boris Karloff coming down a hallway slowly, just clomping in the shadows, I would be afraid. I would be afraid. But if I saw the other Frankenstein, I'd be like, okay. All right. And I think, honestly, that shows a sea change from what's going on, because the earlier Universal movies, let's just call them Universal series, they were more horror-oriented, and they were more philosophical and creepy, and they still had some action in them, but it wasn't like, this rip-roaring action. And I think that you started seeing that change come over it with The Mummy's Hand, which we did a review of, and that's the birth of the monster movie. That's the birth of the monster movies.
This is the first movie that people have considered to be a B picture.
Yeah.
As they were sort of downgrading the budget, making it more of a monster movie than a horror movie, making it, more rip-roaring action, less of a budget.
What are the elements that make up
a cast?
Yeah, definitely, that we can definitely point out on this one. What makes a monster movie, in some people's opinion, would be that you have a female who is menaced. You have a hero character, love interest perhaps. The action is rip roar, whatever you want to call it. It's fast paced. I mean, this movie clocks in at about 60 to 67 minutes. Would you say?
Yes, it is quite fast.
And I think that some of the other ones that we have coming
it's not as breezy as the other ones. The pace is quite solid, I will say, compared to other movies that we have.
Yeah.
With a Frankenstein movie, Universal guarantees a lot of quality in general with their Frankensteins, which is why, like all the other movies, when you think of, the Mummy movies, it's like, but then it's like Frankenstein, that's their birth child.
Speaking of the Mummy, though, the Mummy's Tomb, in that movie, I did see those markers of a monster movie. That, again, this is not like The Mummy with Boris Karloff.
This movie started it, and the Mummy's Tomb was the thing that went, okay, yeah, we're on this route.
Well, I saw some hints of it in The Mummy's Hand, that the mummy is more of a monster, just to you point to who you want to die and he goes after him,
But the theming's a lot better because they have, this actual mummy instead of, why is it just Boris Karloff but regular? He's not really, doing much, mummy.
Well, the thing we think about of the mummy, which is a wrinkled dude covered in bandages, that's the mummy's hand. From then on, that's what we think of as the mummy. We don't think of Boris Karloff with just his wrinkled face. That looks more like a sorcerer.
But what makes a monster movie really, to me, is the intrigue around, the monster and, some of the questions posed and, some of the plot points and elements.
It's more of an adventure. It's more of a pulpy adventure tale with a creature in it than the philosophical underpinnings of
Mary Shelley.
What is immortal love? what is immortal love, or what does it mean to take the creation of a being like away from God?
You know, the roots of it from Mary Shelley, of course.
Yes.
You know, from the first book. The whole, you know, the book was written to a point, you know? And it's sort of lost this point as it's gone. But I can still say this is a solid movie. Like, you know, Son of Frankenstein. I also like that movie in this same way. And it might be like, you know, like, oh, maybe he's a little based. Maybe he has a unpopular opinion, you know. But right. Yeah, I do like the movies. I mean, they're not as, you know.
Let's put it this way. If you are okay with some of the elements of monster movies, you're going to be all right, because we're going to see quite a bit of them, and they do vary in scope. They vary in quality as well. So that's going to be part of it. I don't think that, as far as philosophical elements and stuff like that, you get more of that as you get into the 60s and even into the 70s, but it's going to be monster movies for quite a while.
I like the furthering of, you know, the events of Son of Frankenstein, you know, starting off with, you know, the villagers are actually, you know, doing something about their situation, and it's, you know, this action-packed sort of opening we have here. They're actually, you know, getting to do something based off of what was in the previous movie. And also some of the reactions to, as we see later, reference to the original Frankenstein in the idea of, you know, as we mentioned, you know, the brains. What if you replaced the Frankenstein's brain with a new one? Because, see, as in the previous movie, it was a criminal brain, but then going back to that, walking back to say, like, hey, this plot thread here, what if we conclude it here with, you know, bringing it back one last time and going, you know, it's sort of like a completion of a loop. It's sort of opening a loop and then closing this loop with going like, see this thing we planted back here? We bring it back and we put the other half of the situation and go, you know, I love that part. I love the variety of, you know, the pacing. We have, you know, various action-packed elements. There are also lots of different scenes that aren't so action-packed.
Yeah.
You know, lots of different, you know, dialogue, lots of different, you know, elements, you know, hopping in with the plot, you know, and I like that as well. I also like some of the cinematography, how it's been upgrading over the years, especially the ending shots. Boy, I will talk about them to death, because I was surprised. I was quite surprised by how, like, immaculate, it's like, okay, they're gonna do, like, this grand sweep into, you know, Frankenstein, you know, dying at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert, but I guess you could already guess he dies at the end of the movie. Well, quote, dies, because you never truly kill an IP.
Yeah,
but
franchise.
And then, like, the two of them walking off into the sunset was done in the way that I wouldn't have imagined they would have done at this point. And I was, like, really surprised.
It was very Gone with the Wind-ish. And when we get to the plot, you can kind of go into it. But
and I mean, yeah, Gone with the Wind was like, yeah, it's about this time, you know, in the timeline.
Yeah, there's a scene in Gone with the Wind where Scarlett O'Hara says, "As God is my witness, I'll never go hungry again." And she's looking over the hill, and it's, you know, it's artificial. It's not a real sunset, but that's that kind of, you know, that look that it looked like they were kind of aping in this. But that's just my thought, and I'm not the only one who thought that too. I think some other people had that opinion.
But yeah, the thing about Lon Chaney Jr. that people are like, oh, there's this new person, you know, hopping in from the Wolfman. You know, they did the Wolfman and then immediately went to this one movie because, of course, it would save a lot of time to go like, oh, we'll just copy like a third
of the cast,
3/4 of the cast.
We'll talk about how quickly it got going. Keep going.
Though it was originally actually going to be Boris Karloff, I believe. They were going to see if they could have gotten him back.
They couldn't.
But they couldn't because he was doing Arsenic and Old Lace.
He was doing
I recall
on stage. He was doing it through Broadway, and it was very successful. He was surprised that it did so well, and I think that people wanted to see Boris Karloff and really knock it out of the park.
Was that a movie with Peter Lorre and Fred Astaire?
There's a movie version of Arsenic and Old Lace.
Yeah, which is what I am.
This one it was on Broadway. It was actually a play.
Because this was 2 years prior to the movie. But they were going to see if they could have got him, but there was scheduling conflicts, so instead they, you know, got with him. I honestly also feel like, you know, budget, Boris Karloff would have asked for a high budget, as always, and as they're sort of sloping down in budget and going like, you know, we can start to, you know, cheapy-cheapying it up.
You think Lon will take a smaller
Carl
paycheck?
Laemmle Jr., at this point, was gone. He was gone from, head role, right? We talked about him way earlier in the season.
Yeah.
About him being kicked out of his, business, and it be taken over by, like, Arthur, what's his name,
It's all about Showboat, right?
They didn't care as much as Carl Laemmle and Carl Laemmle Jr. were sort of like, I really like this horror stuff, and they kickstarted, or Carl Laemmle at least kickstarted that. I think it was Junior by Frankenstein, but
yes.
Regardless, he was like, Carl Laemmle Jr. was like, I have a deep love for horror movies, and, the way he did with Frankenstein, and that was his, like, true dream child. And having this ripped away from him, the new management, I think, didn't really care as much for that, because they're like, they care about money.
Yeah, hungry for a franchise.
They're hungry for action.
They want a franchise.
Everyone loves action.
They want a franchise.
They want a franchise. They want more movies.
They're going to milk it. Here's the thing. They're going to milk it until it no longer has...
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care as much. They don't have this isn't their dream child,
If it drops in interest with the public at all, they are gonna move on to the next thing. And as you'll see, they kind of go, well, and this is my theory on it, but I'm probably right. They're like, wait a minute, okay, we got a Frankenstein's monster. What would happen if we had Frankenstein's monster and Wolfman, two of our big guys in the same movie? Oh, that's got to be a blockbuster.
And then what if all of them came together? What if Abbott and Costello got on this?
Let's invent some new creatures or new characters as well to kind of connect it all. Oh, we might just get Boris Karloff back, but he doesn't want to play the monster anymore. So let's get, some guy who used to be in a lot of Westerns.
Let's get a guy whose last name is Strange.
Yeah.
He'll be perfect.
Yeah, exactly. He's like...
Yeah, Glenn Strange. He was in the House of Movies.
Yes, and he's a very tall guy, and he's in Westerns, he's a stuntman kind of guy. So he doesn't... It's almost like they're like, if we're going to have the monster not talk, we're going to have him lumber around and put his hands forward and just clomp forward, then anyone can play him. You see what I'm saying? At least with the with the Wolfman.
In this movie, I believe the reason for that specifically would be clarified at the end of this movie.
Yeah, blind. He goes blind.
Yeah, he goes blind at the end of the movie
for real stretch of a reason, which we'll go into.
For some stretch of a reason we won't spoil.
Because it's bonkers. I just want to tell you,
they definitely kept him the same with the same makeup as Boris Karloff had in, like, Bride of Frankenstein. Because after all, if they had seen, a different type of Frankenstein, they would have been like, oh, we're changing up the formula. This isn't the Frankenstein I know.
George Wagner, the producer, of course, he produced Wolfman. Did he also produce Mummy's Tomb coming up, I think?
He produced the last
I
movie
think he's the
yeah,
that's right. I think he's the Kevin Feige of these franchise movies. So he was in the instructions were the makeup that Karloff was wearing, that they would don't change the appearance too much because it could kill the interest of the Frankenstein follower. So basically, this is early on. When somebody...
They're thinking of all those, people who are, like, in for the marathon, got their popcorn out.
Yeah, but like fans that follow
and, like,
this
chewing
character.
And angry, like, oh, this doesn't really work. I'm chewing their popcorn.
Well, this happens. This happens now. I mean, somebody goes, well, hey, wait a minute. We saw some early, plan photos of the way that Batman's suit looks. Oh, we don't like the way the symbol looks. I'm kind of like skeptical. And the producer goes, well, it's okay. It's going to be great. Or even Superman's suit. They're like, why does like the Man of Steel one? Why doesn't it have the red underwear? We don't know about this.
Or why isn't he a literal man made out of steel?
No. I'm talking about the real Superman fans when they're...
Yeah, I'm just cracking a bad joke.
Yeah, when the Superman fans, when you change too much about something, or it doesn't have that core thing that makes the appearance of Superman what they want to see, they could complain. So anyway, that's the same thing you see with these early Universal movies. Is they're coming up. They're saying we have a formula and we're going to stick to it. In fact, they ditched the fur coat, fur vest that
Son of Frankenstein introduced.
Yeah, which I actually like the fur vest. I do.
But it was just different enough,
It made him look more like a man of the countryside. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he's a caveman sort of appearance.
A little bit of a wildness to him. He's not civilized.
But speaking of civilized, Eric Taylor was the writer on this movie.
Yes.
I will definitely say he's a lot more of a quality writer. I mean,
he's pretty good. The continuity is close, but I think they did take away some continuity with the earlier movies, especially with...
Like, see, Bride of Frankenstein did that with the first movie.
Yes.
And then Son of Frankenstein did that with the Bride of
So
Frankenstein.
you're saying it's kind of par for the course, that they might... Continuity, schmontinuity is kind of what...
Yeah, continuity, schmontinuity.
Yeah, I mean,
guess.
William, you also... we watched Mummy's Tomb recently. We're going to do that the next. But there's different continuity issues there, too, with timelines and how, how much time has passed in between movies. How old is this guy again? Yeah.
It's, it's like they're trying to resurrect a franchise, and then they go like, wait, how on earth are we going to do that? But I'm going to say his writing is pretty great, because after all, as I described, with the bringing back the brain thing from the first movie was really ingenious. I would say. And I mean, like,
it creates a bonkers thing. Yeah.
Sudmak is off the walls. He's a kooky man. This guy, he definitely has a lot more experience and quality on his hands.
They were gonna have Basil Rathbone's character, Wolf Frankenstein, show up in the script, but that did not come through. The stuff that actually in Eric Taylor's script that survived would be the monsters bond with children, villagers storming a castle, a brain transplant sequence, and a fiery demise of the monster.
But rather, that is his original script. He obviously revised his script.
Yeah, and anything that they, of course, also were told that... was it the PCA?
The code,
or the Hays Code. The one in England. England is very hardcore about stuff. I mean, which is kind of funny because the most hardcore, horror movies that you and I are going to see next in the next couple seasons are from Hammer, and I can't wait till you get to those. Now, when this movie, I will tell you this. Remember how we said that Lon Chaney did not have a great relationship with Jack Pierce? I think that maybe...
I will bet his costume was not very great on him as it was on Boris Karloff. I mean, Boris Karloff was still... I mean, we talked about how he didn't really have a good time with it either. This is more
makeup. This is... when he did the wolf...
But he's the type of guy to get more frustrated at stuff.
Yes.
Especially, he's a drunken sort of dude.
Yeah, he would
get more frustrated at stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And he did drink, and and they kind of, like I said, they kind of worked their scheduling around that.
He'd also be good with the children, too. Apparently, he, got everyone an ice cream at one point. He
yeah,
got all
the little kids. Yeah, any kids that were, I guess some of the bully kids that were messing with little Clostine, Husman. But yeah,
yeah, sure hope it was mint chocolate chips.
It would it'd be green. Yeah, he seems like a good guy with kids. I think that maybe he's got a little bit of a kid at heart in himself.
He's got a rough side, but he's also got a soft side.
He does, and
as we see, in the Wolfman being, his regular human form, that is, compared to, in this movie.
Yeah, and he has also a little bit of childlike kind of goofball too, because remember he would jumping out and scaring Evelyn Ankers, who played the female love interest.
Yeah, somebody better
Wolfman.
Anchor her to the floor.
Oh, wow.
Because she's going to fly away.
Well, or she's going to be anchored to the floor after she inhales all the fog. Remember she inhaled the fog, and she passed out, and they didn't notice her down there until they were getting the cleaning up the set, and they're like, how long have you been down there? Let's take you to the hospital.
Yeah, I think in fact actually he was at one point gonna try to adopt the little girl.
Yeah,
I think.
Gallo is her last name. I'll get to that part when we talk about the actors, because there's really not a lot to talk about that's new. We will mention some elements.
It was banned in Denmark. Scandinavia, more like Scandinavy. Don't release this movie here.
Scandalnavia. God. No, so but it's probably because of the Hays Code. They would, they're like, okay, well, we have some scenes of possible brain transplant. We have some scenes that take place in a quote insanity ward. I mean. Okay, we'll talk about how Dr. Ludwig Frankenstein, I mean, he's like, oh, I'm a doctor of the mind. I heal the mind. And he has this, the only thing we see of his...
lightning machine.
Yeah, the only thing we see of his setup is a weird brain transplant operating theater, and he's got these very dungeon-esque kind of stuff going on downstairs.
And a very, very complex and involved
machinery. Like, how did he get that?
That just generates
how did he get he stole that stuff from Wolf Frankenstein? No, he's in Visseria, which is another place altogether, and Wolf Frankenstein was in the village of Frankenstein. That's definitely a separate area. I mean, because we'll go into it when we talk about the plot, but we'll talk about the two villages or cities are completely different.
I believe it was a set that was recycled from the old All's Quiet on the Western Front.
All's Quiet on the Western Front, yeah, which was recently remade, and it got a lot of Oscar buzz. So I haven't seen it yet, but it's on my list. But it's probably going to be very
probably
harrowing.
After Oppenheimer.
Very harrowing, yeah.
Probably gonna want to watch Oppenheimer. I don't know about me and Oppenheimer.
I would say no.
Probably not anytime soon.
I would say no, probably. All right, so.
What about the reception?
We'll go into let's talk about a little bit more about the production. So, Lon Chaney had some issues with the makeup. He had to wear it all the time. He had a real bad allergic reaction to it as well. There was one time when he was just like, it was spirit. You know, this stuff called spirit gum. I wore some of this stuff in a play because I played a dwarf with a weird nose, and you have to have spirit gum to like stick it to your skin, and you have to rub like alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, and it breaks the spirit gum down, but it's stuck to your skin. You're not going to peel this thing off. But Lon Chaney tries to peel the forehead application off, and his skin came off with it, and a big chunk of his forehead came out. So he had to go to the hospital for that.
So he tore it off because he was so stuck
He's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
I don't want to do this. Rip. Owie.
Yeah.
I did not expect.
Now, well, you're talking about the reception real quick. We'll go into the reception real quick, but it actually did really well, and which is strange because even people nowadays are like, yeah, the magic of the Frankenstein series is kind of going, I guess, downhill.
And it is quite a bit of a crazy plot that you have to sort of grip onto and be like, okay, this is, what's sort of happening. There's a lot of this, commentary and, or dialogue in the movie sort of around these elements. And it's like, okay, brains, why? Brain, what is brain?
Brain, what is brain? To quote Star Trek, yeah.
One of the first episodes of Star Trek.
Yeah. So the other thing is that, George Wagoner was producing. Of course, he produced Chaney in Wolfman and also in Man-Made Monster in 41, which we'll see later. The director that they got to make this movie was Earl Kenton. We'll see Earl Kenton, I think, in the House movies as well, I think. But do you remember he directed Island of Lost Souls in 32?
Right.
Which I really liked. It was so weird. That movie is so weird. I like it. So everybody's killing it in that movie. I mean, oh my goodness, Charles Lawton is just great in that. Okay, anyway. But in a 50-year career, Earl Kenton made 100 movies. So he usually does like one or two a year.
Did you know that there was a movie called The Howling that came out in the early 80s that actually had a character that was named after Earl Kenton and George Wagoner as well?
I did not. I don't remember that.
So apparently just being like, okay, yeah, we'll get the producer and the director of Ghost of Frankenstein as characters in our movie. And I'm like, okay, why Ghost of Frankenstein?
The Howling is definitely a very adult movie.
I would think the Wolfman.
It's famous for its transformations. I would say that The Howling was famous for its werewolf transformations.
Rated based on An American Wolf of London, in London, that came out around the
An American Werewolf in London was I would say a step above that because you get some of the full body stuff, and also it's just the acting from the main character as he's going through this is so much better. But the funny thing is, in American Werewolf in London, you have the character changing and he's down on the floor changing, and it's like he's going through it. And the only reason we're watching it is because it's filmed, it's a movie, right? But in The Howling, the scene where the guy transforms into a werewolf right in front of this lady, she's just standing there just watching him change. I would be like, while you're changing, I'm outie. And and then leaving, in these transformation sequences, you'll always see like somebody going, oh no, and he's changing. Oh no, my goodness, and he's still changing. And and you're like, run, You know, I know that.
Yeah, it's either fight or flight, man. Are you gonna punch the transforming thing, or are you gonna run away from it?
Right.
Honestly, I wouldn't dare punch it because I don't know what the skin would feel like as it's transforming, like a little like raw pinky flesh. I don't want to touch the raw flesh. I don't want to touch.
So here's the thing: is we've got a really great cast here on paper. I mean, Ralph Bellamy and Evelyn Ankers, they do okay. I hate to say it, they're kind of forgettable. Is that bad for me to say or what? Cedric Hardwicke, I think he has done.
He's been established to be a great
actor. But he does okay in this. And Lionel Atwill as Dr. Bomer does not get a lot to do. I think that his star was kind of fading because of the scandal. We already talked about this earlier.
Okay, and compare Bela Lugosi in this movie to Bela Lugosi in Son of Frankenstein.
Still good.
You still love him
Here's the thing is, in Son, I like his makeup better. I think they hit his teeth kind of funky, and he has more of the broken neck looking effect.
I feel like in this movie there's not as much of that.
No.
He looks a lot more like a person.
Yeah, and he
just has this round lump on his neck, and that's really
I think that hanging out down there near the sulfur pits. I mean, it did such a great job at keeping Frankenstein alive,
keeping his skin supple.
Yeah, and it helped out Ygor's teeth. I don't know, maybe there's something.
Yeah, sulfur is yellow, but it doesn't make your teeth yellow, I guess.
No, it doesn't. It straightens them out a little bit.
But yeah, I do in this movie. I like how there's something something to like about seeing Frankenstein as this machine and he's being like led around a little.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, Ybor, Bela Lugosi kills it as Ybor, and honestly, it's probably his. If you were to say his top 2 roles, what are his top roles? I would say Dracula and Ybor, and it's fantastic.
And then, what do you say in Frankenstein versus the Wolfman?
No. I would say this. I don't see it. I really don't. I mean, to be honest, I think that it was a wasted role for him in Frankie meets Wolfie. The Daily News, New York Daily News said, horrid, not horrendous, and horribly boring, even though a lot of good players do the best they can with dreadful material. That's rough.
I can just imagine this old British Slayer, with the dreadful material.
Yeah, but of course Wanda
horribly boring.
Yes, but Wanda Hale is New York. Now
she's a knitter. Yeah.
There's the other one is this one is somebody with New York Times said that it fills us with mortal terror. That is the most fear prospect, which this picture manages to convey. Well, he was saying that he was. No,
I don't think.
What he was saying is the thought of Frankenstein's monster returning in another movie fills us with dread. He was saying
movie existing.
He was saying if we get Frankenstein come back again, that's going to fill us with dread. Now, here's the thing: the 2 House movies, the Monster Mash movies that we'll go into, they are more showing the dropping in quality of these kind of movies, and you could kind of see that Universal needed to kind of find a new way. They're less interested in producing horror movies than churning out monster movies, which there's not a lot of nuance of character, there's not a lot of subtext, echoes of folklore and literature. They were kind of moving away from those. Subtle? No, not subtle. Easy to sell to the average public. Grotesque makeup, rip-roaring action. We talked about that. It wasn't as embraced by fans. I would say modern fans.
I feel like Son of Frankenstein was more embraced than Ghost of Frankenstein.
Yes, please.
But both of them are still sort of outcasts in the community, and a lot of the time people are just clustering toward the first 2 movies. And I will say I feel like all of them have quite a bit to like compared to other franchises we've covered. It's sort of not. It's not as that. But like with Frankenstein, there's quality there, as I said. So like just with any of the 4 movies, you could say that there's some things that you can like about them,
Yes, I would agree. And
I feel like because that's the important thing for Universal to get right is Frankenstein.
And I think lesser and lesser as it goes. But this is probably their last, big chance to really have a handle on Frankenstein. I think that it's okay, but I think that the movies going forward, I kind of, it's just the magic is kind of not as sharp. If you show somebody, hey, show me a trilogy of Frankenstein movies that are really great and have a lot to do, and have a lot to say. And, I would say the first one, Bride and Son. I mean, those are the ones that I would show somebody. If they want to see three Frankenstein movies, I'd show them those. I wouldn't show them any other ones.
Yeah, because see, when you wanted to show me Frankenstein all those times ago, the very first time I ever saw anything that came out before like 1960 or even 50 was, Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. You didn't even go to Son of Frankenstein, I don't recall. Even.
Yeah.
But, you can sort of see the drop-off. You go like, Son of Frankenstein, Ghost of Frankenstein, and it's like Frankenstein is the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello would be at even more of a low. Oh, Hans Day Salter's score for Ghost of Frankenstein nominated to be on the list of AFI's 100 Years of Film Scores. Interesting.
Okay.
I will say, yeah, this score definitely has a lot. There's something to like about the score. It's definitely, because there's lots of, different, transformations of motifs. I will say that they're very interesting instruments that I still can't even pinpoint what they are. Last time, with Son of Frankenstein, I was like, what is he playing? That's definitely an oboe by now, I'll say.
Right.
But, there was when Frankenstein appears, there's this, weird instrument, and I'm like, what on earth is that instrument? I still don't know, at this point, but, I don't know if anyone really has, figured it out, because, it's not like too many people care about, oh, I'm gonna figure out what on earth this particular instrument is from this particularly old movie.
Yes, but here's the thing. The plot is kind of bonkers toward the end, and some things don't quite make continuity sense. Let's just say, okay, if Wolf is supposed to be the younger brother and Ludwig's the older, when were they born to Clive? To Clive, it's like they never show him make any children, and yet he has two, right? And then of course, Ludwig is old enough to have a daughter in her 20s. Like Evelyn Ankers, right? And then you've got Wolf, who's got a little boy named Peter, and you're like, okay. It's
like you don't really think about how on earth it'll work, other than it's like they're just trying to make it work by constantly be like, okay, we're gonna make a new Frankenstein that appeared. It's sort of like Spiegel Me 3 grew. Obviously didn't have a twin brother. I feel like they did better with that though, because in Despicable Me 3 they had this revelation because there was a divorce really early on, I think. So yeah, that worked out well, but it's like in this it's sort of like, oh, Ludwig van Frankenstein, he existed? Huh?
Right. How see, they're just like, okay, we need a son of Frankenstein. Okay. Well, that didn't quite make total sense with Wolf Frankenstein. Okay, now we have another son. Okay, what? It's a little bit Looney Tunes. I think that kind of they clear up a lot of the continuity later, though. I think as they stopped dealing with Dr. Frankenstein's and dealt more with the actual monster himself, then it kind of made a little bit more sense.
But I do. Yeah, and the thing that I do like about this movie as well is, as I said, it's building off the previous movie. It's just I love how it's sort of all building up on this, lore, and you get to see some of this atmosphere that is in some of them, although it's definitely different from the Bride of Frankenstein.
Some of the story elements are bonkers.
I like the adding to what is the village even styled from? Is it French? Is it Roman architecture?
It's German. I think it's more this kind of German
but I like the architecture
Lederhosen
in this village.
Yes. I think what I liked about it...
Some great set design in here, I guess I will say.
What I liked about this movie is toward the end, where it kind of goes like, what? You're talking about doing what with the brain? And then they want to take somebody else's, this brain and put it into his head. And it starts getting kind of Looney Tunes, what they want to do. And the ending sequence is something to behold. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, as I said, man. Just man.
You have to...
like that one meme with the horse just staring out into the beach. Man.
Yeah, you have to see this. So
as for a cast, we've obviously covered Lon Chaney Jr. last episode. Cedric Hardwicke, I believe we covered in, Things to Come? I think it was in Things to Come.
Yeah.
That was the first time we saw him. Lionel Atwill, we talked about him
Vampire
when he was
Bat.
in Dr. X.
Vampire Bat.
But he was in Dr. X, and we
talked
about
and
Dr. X
the scandal, we won't go into detail, but it's very sad.
Yeah, Ralph Bellamy.
The little girl was Janet Angallo. She has kind of a connection with the monster.
And with Lon Chaney Jr.
Yes, she said that he was very sweet when they worked together. He would do the ride a little horsey going downtown thing where you put a kid on the knee and kind of do games with him, sitting on a lap. He was very sweet. He's almost like an uncle. And when
gentle handling. And I will say he's a very homely person. We talked about it in the Wolfman. His voice is just that homely. You want to be friends with this.
Well,
guy.
That's what made him a great.
His character was not that great.
Yeah, but that's what made him great in a lot of these roles, like of Mice and Men, where he played that character. It's very a simple-minded man. Just very tell me about the rabbits. But what happened is to Janet Ann Gallows, her mother died about 3 years after this movie came out, and Chaney offered to adopt her and her brother, but Janet Gallows' father went, I'm still here. You can't adopt them out. I know you were caring about their well-being, but I'm still here. So
yeah. Speaking of I'm still here, Dwight Fry made a
cameo,
extreme cameo in this movie. At the beginning, is a villager who's wanting to burn the castle down. He's really advocating for the death of this castle. They really
it's a blink and miss it. It's a blink and you miss it if you don't watch it.
Although thing is, he was in, we talked Dracula, and then Vampire Bat, and then Invisible Man. He was the reporter.
Little cameo there too, yeah.
Bride, he was Carl. Ghost of Frankenstein, this film, and Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. I
think he shows it real quick there too.
He was in Son of Frankenstein, but that was deleted. Remember, yeah. Although the thing was, he died in 1943, so we will only be able to see Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Will be the last time we will see Dwight Fry in any capacity. Yep. And man, he was a great guy.
Yeah.
Honestly, who did he play? Rudy. I don't know who Rudy is, but
I really liked his. I really liked his Renfield. Fritz and Carl.
His ability to play, crazed characters to, some of these village people who want to see something done, like, reporters and villagers and stuff.
Those are kind of extra roles.
The capacity we saw him, those are extra roles. But, his ability in the two movies, Vampire Bat and Dracula, most importantly, just really great guy.
Yeah.
He was honestly a pretty great guy, and it's sad to see him go so soon.
Yeah.
In 1943.
That happened with Clive, too,
But, cardiac arrest, man.
Yeah,
really.
Well, he was a drinker, and that was a big problem with a lot of these actors. Is they had
didn't really care for the upkeep of their life.
They had their vices, and that's how they deal with this stuff. But as we go, we're gonna meet some new actors. I think as they kind of go, well, we can't really use these. It's like, okay, Bela Lugosi's career starts, kind of tapering off. The same thing with Lon Chaney's kind of career starts tapering off.
Yeah, this is really the death of the classic era we've been seeing
here.
Yep,
we're into the monster movie franchise kind of
era.
We're
into the rehashes and hasheries, and then
and monster
we're gonna
mashes.
get into science fiction as we get into season 3.
Yeah, people were more thinking more about different kinds of monsters, and maybe monsters that came from outer space, and that's the big thing, or mutations. Now we're going to see a lot of that, and then of course monsters awaken
as the Cold War was starting up after World War II ended.
That's true. Yeah,
that's really it.
We talked about the making of this movie, but I'm telling you, we're going to have a lot to talk about some of the kooky, like I said, bonkers. I use that word again, bonkers plot elements, and you're going to be doing the plot for us. And
such as why is the village named Frankenstein?
Right.
Why is the village named
Well,
Frankenstein?
we talked.
Why?
We're still.
I mean, we still argue that, but why?
We're still boggled from Son of Frankenstein. Why that is, and because it's like, yes, our town is cursed. Hey, let's name our cursed town after the guy who cursed us. No.
Yeah, that's not how it works. I mean, I would assume, if he become mayor and then was, really dictatory and went, I'm gonna name the village after myself. Why would it be named the Village of Frankenstein?
How many times can you be shot before you're kind of going, maybe you're a supernatural being instead of a human? Like we're talking about Ybor. It's like, nobody can kill Ybor. I can get shot 7 or 8 or 10 times, and
monsters can be killed by fire and lightning and rubble and still survive.
That's why I love Ybor, is because he's like a regular dude that's just kind of, his neck is broken and whatever. It's that he's so cool.
He's just kooky.
Death doesn't want him. I mean, Death doesn't want him. Of course, eventually Death does get him, but
yeah, he's like Toy Story 2. I don't want to play with you anymore. He drops Woody. Yeah, that's what Andy did.
no.
It was this dream sequence at the beginning of the movie.
Yes, and so Death doesn't want to play with him anymore.
Honestly, I didn't know Toy Story 2, like, existed, because I had only watched, like, the first one just, like, once or twice, mostly the third one a lot, and then, like, later, you know, in, like, 2021, I finally went, like, wait, or I had learned about Toy Story 2 existing a little bit before then, but I'm like, wow, I didn't know Jesse had an origin at all, so yeah, I watched that movie in 2021. How crazy is that?
That is crazy that you went back. You kind of went to 3 and then back to 2.
Yeah, it's sort of how it worked, I guess.
I thought 2.
Even if I had seen 2 when I was a child, I probably didn't remember.
Well,
really
2.
seeing
Here's
it.
the thing. 2. Not to get off subject, but 2 created the design and the plan of you have a person who forgets about or moves on from a toy, and what does that mean?
That really got expanded in Toy Story 3 and culminated
with the bear, yeah,
and represented in the bear. I don't remember his name.
Mr.
It was either, like, Gonzo or Fuzzy or
Giggle
some
Fuzz
combination.
Giggle Fuzzies. I don't know these. Look, I only know Woody and Buzz Lightyear.
I swear I would remember his name, but it's been a while since I've seen Toy Story, so you know.
Yeah, but speaking of story, William, after a quick break, you are gonna outline this kooky bonkers tale for us, and we have I have lots of questions, and we're gonna discuss that.
Yeah, although we wouldn't even have to do a podcast episode all about it. If you know, it would just be so much easier if we just swapped brains. You know, if we just swapped brains, you would know everything already, and we wouldn't have to do this.
I will rule the world and live forever immortal. Yeah.
I know the plot details.
I'll do the plot and you do the production. No, it's all right.
All right, I'm gonna lose my voice at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's get into some breakage so that we can, you know, have a little chillax time before we get into the plot, because after all, we have to, you know, write and think of all this stuff up. We don't just, you know, create this from our mind. I mean, we create it from our minds, but, like, we don't. We have a little preparation time in order to gather our thoughts, you know?
Yes. So we'll come back.
Because otherwise, it's like, wait, what happened to this movie? Immediately rewatches all of the movie and cuts out the time takes.
Mere moments will pass, and then you'll be back with us. Welcome back to the second half of our Ghost of Frankenstein review and deep dive. I am ready to discuss this thing in depth because the word bonkers, I think I'm going to try to keep that to a minimum. Lunacy? Maybe? Looney Tunes? Maybe? Keep that to a minimum. I think I keep saying bonkers, but I think we'll try to keep those adjectives to a minimum as we talk about this. But I'm telling you, it's a good descriptor.
Yes, I could say so, although honestly, I think Roger Rabbit was better than
Oh,
bonkers.
wait, who? What?
I'm making a reference to Who
yeah.
Framed Roger Rabbit being basic. Bonkers. Okay, for those who don't know, Bonkers is a Disney 80s show about this police cat and his companion, which is either a girl or a guy, depending on which season or whatever.
That was the 90s.
Yeah, it was the
That
90s,
came after,
right?
after Who Framed.
It's basically Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but if it was all a cartoon and if it was a little bit worse. I do like how they have, like, all the Disney characters.
Well, they
in
have the
there.
rights to them, so might as well. That show is not really that memorable to me. I remember
It's not memorable is the issue.
This cat cheetah-looking dude in a police costume. Is that right? Okay, that's all. And
Yes.
And sometimes I get it mixed up with this other thing called marsupilami. That's not the same thing, but sometimes in my head I would get those two things conflated together.
Well, you can just imagine one of them as
Correct.
something that smashing, and the other is something you put in a sandwich.
Yeah, okay. So, now, William, marsupial salami.
Marsupial
You're gonna,
salami.
sum this movie up as best you can, and we're going to discuss what happened in it, kind of give it play-by-play.
I'm gonna piece this plot together, assembling it bit by bit, using various different assorted members.
And we're gonna see if this thing can shamble to life. So, you want to kick us off?
Bring me back to life.
Oh,
Wake
yeah.
me up inside. Wake me up inside.
Yeah.
That's a great song. Anyways, we begin the story in the town hall with the townsfolk in riot because of the curse of Frankenstein. That is the village. The village.
Why would they do that?
Called Frankenstein. I guess let's name our village after a suffering in his honor. Great idea, guys.
Well, they made that mistake in Son of Frankenstein. There was already, some horrible things that happened because of that family, and yet they named the place Frankenstein.
I think it's because, they were like, oh, there's a castle, and the castle is owned by the Frankenstein family, and a village is usually built around a castle, so they would call the village after the castle.
There is like an actual legitimate reason.
But the thing is, I feel like that was the reason, but it just doesn't work that well. It's honestly like, why? Why don't you guys just break up?
I do think it's interesting, though. They're reminded every day of the horror and the curse that befalls them.
As well as some of the other things
their
that
cows,
they're
their cows give
they unhappy.
What sour milk? I mean, how does this affect them? It's like they can't grow wheat.
Yeah, it boils down to lack of import because everyone is afraid of, selling things into the village because it's a cursed village, and that Ybor still isn't dead and is playing his horn in the sulfur pits. As if to lure the creature back from death, is the line. So they're like, he's trying to summon back the creature that we had so rightfully killed.
In Son of Frankenstein, Inspector Krogh, the guy with the wooden arm, that's awesome. That dude's still awesome. But they do that often, so just get used to it. I don't know if that's right. Okay, but he says that the sulfur pit is hot enough to broil a man's skin off his bones, and yet the Frankenstein monster, hereafter I guess known as a monster, he does all right. In fact, he does okay, as we'll see.
Yeah, because obviously if you're gonna have a Frankenstein movie, you're obviously gonna bring him back, because that's what they do often. Like, the villain doesn't truly die, the heroes don't ever truly die if they ever do one, or maybe they do if it's Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Well,
then the hero does die.
Everybody does,
and stays dead
in a way. So, but as far as this is concerned, they switch out other people, and they just let the monster kind of be the thing that everything revolves around, and it's the same thing with Mummy and everything else.
Yeah, and the head honchos are trying to reassure them. It's nonsense, folks, he says, which just sort of reminds me a bit of when I watched it, I thought of the scene from always that they put at the end of Looney Tunes shorts is that's all, folks.
Yeah, exactly. But he's like, they're like, if you don't fix this, we might just vote you out whenever your term ends.
Yeah, the crowd is, promising they won't re-elect him if he doesn't listen to their pleas. Yeah, this prompts the mayor to ask, so what will we do? And Dwight Fry pipes up with bloodlust. He's like, let's blow the castle up. Yeah, which is a bit of a surprise that, he's having this cameo role just to, shout.
There's like 3 or 4 people that all look like Dwight Fry. It's just got to go with it. Just go with it.
Well, Dwight Fry is Dwight Fry, and you can recognize him out of a bunch of hobos.
Yeah, but you got Fritz, you've got Carl, and you've got another dude.
Yeah, he played a lot of people in the Frankenstein.
That's kind of been his big thing, other than playing Renfield. So they want to go destroy. So this is like torch mob assemble.
Yeah, soon enough, they're out with torches, laying TNT in the castle, while Ybor is attacking from above by pushing over the crenels with a satisfying pumel. A
little bit more of a satisfying crash than the big stone. The big stones in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, but honestly, I feel like I don't know how easily crenels come off easily. In case you didn't know, crenels is the French word for the little divots you always see in like little drawings of castles. Those are things they hide behind to the archers hide behind them to shoot arrows. I don't know if they pry that easily off of the big castle, as they are carved
maybe it's in disrepair. I didn't know a lot about castles, different shapes and what they're called. I just remember buttresses because, like, as a young man, I just thought the word was funny.
Yes,
and today I still do. So there you go.
Exactly. But yeah, some splody action.
Yeah.
I like it. But Ybor decides to hoof it because the castle's exploding all around him. Somehow he survives this, despite being senile, but he doesn't die easily, but he probably should die because
he never die.
He's senile and his neck is not even.
So you're saying
intact.
Are we saying? But also
we
we did notice that his makeup is a little bit different. He doesn't look as jank in a good way.
I feel like he wears better clothes now, and
his neck is not as
style.
Freaky looking.
It's more cut and frizzly.
And his teeth are better too.
Yeah,
so
I feel like
I guess he had good dental down in the sulfur pits.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, Frankenstein's monster, as we left him in the last movie, was submerged in a boiling sulfur pit, which by this movie has frozen semi-solid, or I guess you could say it's like powder, but it's not like powder. It's powder that's
like almost like a sandstone. Or something,
it's not like
crumbly,
a bit sandy. Like
chalky,
if you were to kick it, it would make dust. Yeah, have you ever seen sulfur and the chemistry thing?
I haven't. Honestly.
Just imagine it looks like the potassium in your banana. If it were,
well, I know the smell of sulfur, but I don't know how it really looks like what it looks like in its regular form.
Well, I guess we're taking a vacation to somewhere in Hawaii, or maybe like the Andes, if the Andes have sulfur. I think it was too cold for volcanoes, but however, Ybor eyes the monster's hand sticking out of a rock pile, hidden in a hole in the wall, which is, been blown up because of the TNT. Which leads me either to call that inconsistent with the previous movie, or did, the TNT disintegrate all the sulfur or something in that area? That doesn't make sense. But regardless, the sulfur was good for him, as Ybor says, and Ybor frees him from his rocky prison, and they're off.
I think the sulfur or whatever was there also probably fried off the monster's fur vest. Because Boris Karloff's portrayal of it in Son of Frankenstein, he had the fur vest on, which I missed that. I like the fur vest, but I guess it got melted.
I feel like it was different enough.
Continuity is not where these movies shine, because honestly they don't remember.
Yeah, none of the movies have good continuity because it was originally supposed to be one, and then they're tacking a movie on each time and going okay, now we're done.
Yeah, plus by the time it was showing again, it wasn't, who remembers a year ago or 2 years ago or whenever it was? They don't remember what that the Frankenstein had a fur vest. But we watching it on DVD one after the other, or watch it however we watch it one after the other, you're gonna notice those continuity issues.
Yeah, these people between the first and the second film, they had to wait 7 or so years, or probably more like 5 years in between. And then this time they're having to wait, 3 or 4 years in between then Son of Frankenstein. And then this one, they're having to wait, I think it's 5 years again, actually. That would be 39 when Son of Frankenstein.
Right.
It was at least a year or two between, a previous entry. And then the rest of them were 5. So, these people don't have,
Nope.
long-term
That's why they use all these extra clips. Because they're hey, remember that movie?
And plus the writers change hands. And they do constantly do that, where they show clips of the previous movies and go hey, remember this? And then they change it slightly to have the different actors, and they go, remember this? And I'm well, that's not what it looked like in the actual movie.
Yeah, it didn't quite happen that way, but yeah.
But Ybor leads the monster off into the nearby woods in the middle of a thunderstorm, and the monster is chasing the lightning. He gets struck by the lightning, but dramatically stands up unharmed. Honestly, do you know what would have been cool? This is a thunderstorm without rain. If it was torrentially raining, and in the shots there's this epic, silhouette of, the monster standing while, the rain is pouring down, and it's creating, this thick, silhouette, and then, thunder, that would be cool.
It would be cool.
If they didn't have to worry about, shoot time, budget, makeup melting off
exactly.
in the rain. But since when have we seen a movie where it was actually, raining?
Old Dark House?
I feel like we've had.
That was torrential. And I think it was raining kind of heavily at one part of Black Cat.
Yeah. And then
there were lots of rainy scenes and lightning, lots of lightning because it's dramatic.
But when we get further in, they're gonna start, having more of that, atmosphere.
Hope so.
So Ybor recalls from the last movie, your father was Frankenstein and your mother was lightning. He wants uppies from his mom. Is why. His plan immediately after is to track down the other son of Frankenstein and promises the monster great strength.
And the ages of the sons don't make sense. I mean, we talked about this before, but he was never mentioned.
He had a son, and then the next one,
he was never mentioned by the other one, and he doesn't mention the other one. It feels very strange.
Yeah, it does. So, Dr. Ludwig Frankenstein, whom is his other brother,
same
from
mother,
another mother, but not from the same mother, is living in the nearby village of Visaria, where he has this institution where he's curing the mentally ill with brain surgery. Yes, brain surgery. A little surprising. It's like, you might think, psychology ward. You sit in a fun little chair, you have the little Rubik's Cubes to the sides or something. Something fun to play with or read while you're doing this. Instead, you're on anesthesia, and your brain is being picked apart by somebody who you didn't even know.
It's like, I wanted to get inside your mind. Like, for real. I wanted to get my fingers in there.
I wanted to stick my persona in your gray matter. He also has some assistants in Dr. Ketterling and Dr. Bomer. Dr. Bomer was once Lowick's teacher, and he has been dethroned by his own student.
And of course, that's got to make you mad.
Yeah, this interesting fact is expounded upon later. But yeah, we do have this cool little fact where it's like, he got so skilled that the teacher becomes the master.
Yeah, the student becomes the teacher. Oh yeah, something like that.
That's
but
what teacher becomes master becomes student. But iron does not sharpen the iron.
No, it doesn't. But in this case, I think that he feels bad about that. Like he's like, I can have my chance. I could have been a contender. He's constantly thinking like that, and that gets taken advantage of.
Yeah,
sure.
And he does. There is also in the room like some of these weird doohickeys, and we'll see more of them later. But like, there's this robot-looking, head-looking thing, and I'm like, why does it look like that?
Well, it's not. I don't know if it's strict fating or not. I mean, why? But why did Ludwig have all this stuff? It would make sense if, because the other Frankenstein brother, Wolf, I mean, it makes sense for him because he's like, I'm continuing my father's work. But with Ludwig, you're like, he's not really continuing his father's work. But I guess it wouldn't be Frankenstein without the strict fade machines.
Yeah. So, Ybor and the monster arrive into Visaria and immediately encounter a whole flock of geese that are being led by a shepherd girl. At least we don't have a chicken chasing side quest.
No, of course not.
Bottles right now. They are not.
We're not hurting chocobos
right now. They're
right.
We don't need to catch fairies. I wasn't referencing Final Fantasy.
But in this case, I have read some summaries of this movie that said she was blind, but that doesn't make sense because she runs off and acts like she sees them. So go figure. I don't. Again, it's not pivotal to the plot. So
yeah.
Hey.
And plus, she doesn't have the same hair color as Aerith.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's not Final Fantasy. Anyway, at least, so while Ybor is getting directions to Ludwig's house from her, the monster wanders off and finds a little girl who goes by the name Cloestine, whose ball has been thrown up on the roof by bullies. She asks if he could get it for her, so the monster takes her up onto the roof for her to retrieve the ball. Okay, and this elicits great chaos among the villagers who think he's gonna throw her off the building.
They wouldn't be completely out of character.
I don't know why he is taking her along the journey. I'd assume he'd go get it for her, but then no, he's bringing her along. I guess for her to get her ball.
Also, you remember in the previous movies, or at least in Bride. I mean, the monster has thrown people off. Namely, he threw Karloff. Oh, I just heard myself say it. He threw Karl off the castle. Oh. Karloff threw Karl off the castle. So it wouldn't be that far removed for him to chuck a little girl. I mean, he chucked a little girl into some water and drowned her. So, but these people don't know that. I don't think they know anything about the previous guy.
But he does smack 2 people over when they approach.
He janks them.
Yeah, well, what a first impression, man. You're just like, hands off the lady. Backhanded.
Yeah, what are they going to think of him? Of course you'll find out what they think.
Falling down those stairs. A man aims a gun at the monster on the roof, who's made his way onto the roof. But Cloestine's father is like, you're crazy, you'll kill her too. They're stuck to the classic meat shield tactic that Frankenstein monster is employing here. And since they aren't spreading a big tarp like firefighters and telling her to jump like sane people,
or at least a blanket.
At this point, I would be spreading a tarp.
Something.
You know how they spread like a big tarp and tell you to jump?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if she could have jumped, but still, how would you make your way out of there quickly? So all they can do, since there's nothing they can really do, is to beg the monster to come back down. And he does so only after Chloe and Ybor tell him that they won't hurt him at all, so come back down. Although the monster is quickly arrested the moment he touches road, and Ygor's like, no, you broke our promise.
Right.
No. Next
I
scene.
told you it wouldn't happen, and it's like you can't control that with those
It's
people.
inevitable.
Yep.
Next scene introduces lawyer Eric Ernst and his fiancée Elsa Frankenstein, named after the actor Elsa Lancaster, who played Mary Shelley in Bride of Frankenstein, which I think was really sweet.
The bride.
And the Bride of Frankenstein.
Eric is played by Ralph Bellamy, who was the other guy in the Wolfman.
He's a boyfriend character.
He is, and he's there's a couple lines in here that are really wooden from him, but yeah, we gotta have our David Manners, here, and this and Ralph Bellamy is the closest.
I mean, what would you expect from a name from a person who has the last name Bellamy?
I don't know. There's been quite a few Bellamys that I thought were pretty cool. This one though, just kind of he gets in, gets his lines out, and they ring hollow in certain instances.
And his lines are him saying to Ludwig to look after the monster while the monster's on trial. And they do need him there.
Well,
and
he
it's
does.
no joke.
Eric does not know it's a monster. He probably just thinks it's a big lug of a guy. Maybe it's a little bit special.
Yeah, he's like, he tore apart two people,
mentally
man.
challenged, and that But they want Ludwig to come down there and kind of give the whole assessment.
Yeah, I mean, after all, this dude escaped a whole prison with more chains on than he has in that courtroom. So
yes, but they don't know that.
So Frankenstein agrees to have a look at the prisoner as soon as he finishes with his excuses. I mean, his paperwork. And he sends Eric on his way. Just as he leaves, Ybor is in the parlor. And Ybor is blackmailing Ludwig to try and take the monster and cure his ill body with lightning, just like his father did, and is threatening to tell everyone who his relative was, should he not do that.
Right, especially his daughter.
Yeah, I think there's the line, I will do it, and it's like, you have to.
Well, Ludwig doesn't want his daughter, Elsa, to know, what his family did.
Yeah, Ludwig does want to protect his daughter from his family's dark past, which doesn't go too well, as we see later, as he opens a secret compartment containing his father's journal in order to study his father's methods of lightning magic. Although in this movie his name is devolved into Heinrich. Heinrich? Really? You went by Henry, and now you're Heinrich.
I think they're
too fancy.
Well, in Son of Frankenstein, he was in there, but I think they were trying to make his name sound more, kind of Germanic. But the connection's a little bit lost on me.
The monster, he goes on trial in the town, but he is exercising his right to remain silent. I mean, what else can you do? Where were you on the 49th of December?
Right, yeah.
So useful. The judges and lawyers don't understand his not talking, and they think he's insane.
Be like, permission to treat the witness as a hostile witness, sir, Your Honor. Granted.
They offer the Bible, and then he tries to eat it or something, and they're like, what are you doing?
Do you tell the truth? Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Not even Chloe asking him while on his knee, like he's Santa Claus, doesn't work as well. He's like, who are you? And while he's sitting on his, she's sitting on his knee like saying,
yeah,
like
he forgot that he can talk because he for Bride of Frankenstein he's like, food good, smoke good, we belong dead, stuff like that, and now he's just like nothing. But he smiled a little bit when the little girl came up, but it's like you almost killed her according to the people there, and then you're gonna let her come near the monster again? Yeah, okay, that's putting her in danger. I mean, you don't know. She gets her neck snapped. Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. Snapped like a bud, ripped off of a flower.
He pulls her head back like a Pez dispenser.
Maria.
They're all gonna sit there and watch it happen. Going
opens her head and reaches in.
although there is something in her head that he wants. Let's talk about that later.
Thankfully Ludwig is on the scene. But he doesn't recognize the monster, but the monster definitely does recognize him.
How?
Somehow just smelling that Frankenstein musk.
Well, or he has there's different abilities that the monster has. Maybe he has something where he can sense the DNA of his creator.
But the thing is, the judge is like, oh, it looks like he recognizes you because he's giving a stout look, and he's like, oh,
like
I think he recognizes you. Like, how can you tell that? That's like a person who hears a cat say meow, and they say, oh, that he really wants his tuna, but he's really upset because his
He's a cat!
girlfriend stole his tuna, and is now depressed. How did you get that from meow?
he can sense the bloodline of the DNA bloodline, which I guess that's what the mummy can do too. Yeah, he did.
He
He's
read
like
the actors list.
This guy's last name is Frankenstein. Maybe he's the same, similar guy that made me. Anyway.
Yeah, and this causes him to be hostile because, it's a Frankenstein. He then bursts out of his chair and attempts an attack before Ygor summons him away with his horn, and they speed away from the chasing crowd in a wagon, to sum that up. Next scene, Elsa snoops into her father's study and reads the Frankenstein journal.
You mean logs into his iPad and watches the other movie. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the Muppets. I read the script of the last movie to figure out what happened before now. Or technically, before the events of the first movie, because this is him making getting the body.
Even stuff.
But then,
even
it's like now to get a brain.
That Henry didn't know. Even stuff Henry didn't know, like supposedly the information in this book is stuff that Henry wasn't even present for. So, okay. Wow.
Yeah, I think his first movie he didn't know.
Oh,
he didn't know it was a bad brain.
Then why is it in the journal as this happened and then this happened? How do you know?
And that's where that really stops. Actually, I think they did refilm the close-ups of Boris
Yes,
Karloff,
they did, but they didn't
Jr.
refilm Colin Clive to be a different actor, as we'll see. They used Colin Clive again.
As she reads that line, though, guess what? She eyes a shadowy arm on the wall and looks up to see the monster lurking in the window, and Ygor just peeks up from behind him like, "What's up?"
Yeah, we were watching, and it was kind of funny. It's like the monster, and he goes, "Oh!" he says like, "Hey,
what's up?
I'm here." Ygor is here too.
Yeah,
look, Ygor knows he's the best thing about this movie. I'm sorry, he's
the monster grabs Elsa, but Ludwig is able to subdue actually all of them with knockout gas in the hallway that looked to be kind of like those halls in the Black Cat, because in that scene, similarly to the situation, Ketterling gets KO'd. He's knocked out by the beast.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Because of the Black Cat, there was a scene later on in the movie where one of the doctors gets, killed by
Boris Karloff's character.
Boris Karloff.
Yeah. I keep
Halmar Polzig.
Yeah, Polzig. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm just they look awfully similar. But then again, in a psychology ward, I would not think there would be knockout gas.
Why?
Randomly.
Why? That
Why
is
does
true.
he have knockout gas?
What does that have to
Why?
do with any kind of psychological stuff that you need to do? Like, I guess if the person gets a little too crazy, you want to knock them out? I don't know.
I guess. Actually, that could make some sense. After the monster dramatically puts head to floor, Ludwig puts him on the examination table. But the monster awakens and tries to attack because, after all, he got out of that examination table long ago, and he's not going to be stuck to it again. He remembers. But he tries to attack, which Bulmer actually walks in on with surprise as Ludwig is knocking him back out again. Ludwig clarifies to him that he wants to dissect him limb by limb, disassembled, just like he was assembled. Some disassembly required.
Wouldn't cremate him do just as well? Set him on fire, burn him to ash. You don't have to do all that work.
Well, that is effective. We just have to wait 30-40 minutes until that actually happens.
Okay, understood.
Understood. Byrne refuses to help him, though, claiming it would be straight-up murder, Next scene, while studying his family journals, Ludwig is visited by the ghost of his father, also played by Cedric Hardwicke.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, I understand Colin Clive died, after, Brad came out. But surely at least you get a guy who looks more similar to his younger self, especially after using the first movie scenes. How on earth would you think, oh, we're gonna use the old version of him when he's dead? I feel like that's a weird trope where it's you use the old version of people when they're dead, because that was the version you last saw him in. But wouldn't realistically, if you were, hallucinating your dead relative alive, wouldn't you think of him or her as your when you remembered him or her most fondly? When they were
Possibly.
young.
I don't think there really is a rule about those things.
What if your cousin dies? You wouldn't remember the cousin being old. You would remember the cousin being young. Because that's what your brain wants to show you and latch onto, I guess. I just don't understand that trope, I guess. Yeah, Cedric Hardwicke, who is his father. His father actually says, he had a bad brain in him. And what could you do if you replace the brain? Which is it's very interesting. That thought being rolling it back to the last movie and bring, it started this thread back here and then it finished it up back here by
I think so.
Done
Yeah,
it
I'd
so
have to
well.
agree on that. Yeah. That's an interesting, plot point that I'm glad they brought that in.
Ludwig's plan is to replace his brain with Ketterling's brain because Ketterling was noble and educated, and I also guess it's a recent brain, so I guess that would help things, I guess. Not soon removed, I guess. So I think there was some soul stuff in, Black Friday, and Boris Karloff was in a movie. He was in an adaptation of Black Friday.
Yes,
in the 40s, I think.
There was
Or
a
in the late
brain
30s, at
brain
least.
removal kind of personality change switcheroo kind of aspect of that movie. I'm not sure who the writer was, but they probably used some of those elements in this just cause.
Yeah. Oh, it was Kurt Sudmak and Derek Taylor.
Ah.
That's funny. But Ludwig calls Bomer and Ygor and tells him he plans to put Ketterling's brain, and they're gonna the placement of a normal brain might result in a creature who's an actual boon to mankind. And seeing that he has Ketterling's brain on hand, Ludwig agrees and prepares for the operation. Ygor protests that he's gonna lose his friend, and he asks Ludwig to use his brain instead, which is honestly weird. It's, the brain stuff, and it's like, use my brain, I'll be stronger and stuff, is his actual plans behind this. But Ludwig refuses because obviously, you're not the greatest guy. You have a malevolent, look to you.
Yeah, and that's probably a very smart thing that the doctor has done.
Why make someone as wicked as Ygor into
yes? Why? Why would you? And of course, that's what Bomer wants. Bomer could help.
Yeah, and Elsa's like, Ludwig, or father, please stop your experiments. They're really silly, but he is going to do them. Ygor tells Bomer that he should not be subordinate to Ludwig, like he has been over the years. He is appealing to him by going like, yeah, you're past here. I guess I looked at the script, or I looked at your fate sheet.
Right.
I guess if we use RPG terms.
Right.
I looked at your aspects. I saw your flaws, and I am pointing them out and going, well, you could be, the good guy. You could finally pull out again and be the master. Only if you make my brain instead. And then it's like, he actually does succeed to convince him.
Yeah, and I think what he's trying to say is, if I get to be the all-powerful dude,
he's like, if I get to retain my
I could take over this country
again,
and make bring your reputation back. Yeah, I can make all that happen.
I can make it all happen for you. I got friends on the other side.
Command.
Yeah. The police arrive at Ludwig's house. They're searching for the monster because they're like, yeah, he's been in there far too long. What are you doing with him? Eric and the police are asking about Dr. Ketterling's whereabouts as well, but Dr. Ludwig says he left on a train that morning. He's actually dead. He doesn't know that. He doesn't reveal that. They find a secret room that they're in, but Ygor and the monster have fled, so when they find the secret room, they're like, there are weird machines around, and the lightning, strict fading machines, and they're like, really?
Yeah, but before they even find the secret room underneath one of the strict fade machines, they're just kind of like, yeah, this is for my experiments, and you're like, okay. But they find a weird dungeon underneath one of the machines, and you're like, how do you explain this away? Well, this is where I keep somebody that's if they're a little bit more the crazier of my patients.
This is where I refrigerate my grandfather.
Right, exactly. Exactly. They're like, okay, this tracks, and like, what? Yeah.
But the thing is, a new thread in this is starting as the monster, along with Ygor, goes to kidnap young Chloe from her own house, not even having done anything bad to her. And he brings her to the laboratory, insisting that her brain is the one that goes in instead. It's like, okay. And the thing is, he understood this just from pointing at her head and to his head. Then Bomer goes, oh, he wants her brain. Really? It would have been far more epic if he actually said that, like in Bride of Frankenstein, I missed, when he was actually intimidating, like the books or in Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Missed when he was intimidating. I mean, I know that having Lon Chaney Jr. talk would not have been really that great. It would probably break a lot of the immersion because he is a different voice and a new voice to that as well. So I guess it's better that he doesn't talk. Although he could do it really well.
Yeah.
He could do it really well.
He could, but I'll always hear Boris Karloff's voice in his
no one can. I don't think Lon Chaney Jr. is the type of guy to be talking about, philosophy and stuff. Nope. But unfortunately, he knocked over a lamp as he was exiting, and our house is burning down.
Of course, the dad finds out about it, and he's, of course, grief-stricken and horrified and tries to track everybody down.
Yeah, so
later,
Ludwig is triggering all of the, lightning machines to buzz in a very noisy manner.
Noisy.
Ygor gets crushed behind a door, I guess. The monster is prepared for transplant, and unbeknownst to him, Bomer swaps the brains out for Ygor's brain. So the brain is actually Ygor's now. He's dead, he doesn't have a brain in him anymore. Ygor is down. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, everyone is frantic about the monster having vanished, and Chloe is gone, and her father's like, my house burned down, and my daughter is gone. What on earth could we do? And so they're deciding to go out with pitchforks and torches. We can't get enough of that.
Torch mob assembled again.
If you have a universal picture, you will always have some of that. And I don't think any of it was in the Dracula series as of so far, but they're bound to bring it back in with Son of Dracula.
There might be a torch mob somewhere.
There will likely be a torch mob
and they can assemble
anywhere.
so quickly. They just go like, "Hey, what you doing tonight? Nothing much. Torch mob? Yeah, sure, torch mob.
Yeah, sure,
Let's
torch
do it.
mob. Let's leave our babies behind and stuff, and leave our cow unattended.
They'll be fine.
Leave the baby in the baby changing machine. It's not a machine.
No, it's not.
The things in the bathrooms.
The crib? Like
no, the little diaper
changing
changing stations.
Oh, okay. I guess leave them laying on that and just run off.
The thing that they tell you not to do,
Yes.
So Eric has come back to the castle. He's conferring with Ludwig, who informs him that operation has been successful. And the monster is now Dr. Kettering now. Though he does, everyone is shocked when the monster suddenly starts speaking with Ygor's voice and boasts that, I have strength and I'll rule the world. I have the strength of 1,000 men.
It's pretty funny hearing that voice come out of that.
I am Ygor.
It's really funny hearing it coming out of Lon Chaney Jr.'s mouth.
Yeah, also, the thing about it is there was not a throat transplant. There was no vocal cord transplant. It was a brain transplant. Yeah.
It was a brain transplant. So there's just one little noggin away from speech.
Well, you just go with it. It's basically the point of this movie. Don't think about it too much. Just go with it.
Yeah, just go with it. What's happened next? Yeah, he has speech. He has Bela Lugosi's voice. It's very funny. But unfortunately his blood type is not the same. After he knocks Boer into a machine, which frizzles him out. He's electrocuted, and Ludwig gets downed, or maybe that was Boer saying, the bloodline. But it turns out he's blinded by that fact.
His blood is the same type as Kettering's, but not the same as Igor's. It will not feed the sensory nerves.
Over! You played me a trick! What good is a brain without eyes to see?
And so, Lon Chaney Jr. is just walking around with his arms stretched out, blind, flailing around.
And that's actually why in the future movies, Frankenstein's monster, he's always got his arms out.
But is he really,
straight.
even in the House of Dracula's, the House of movies, he's just walking around blind and crashing into stuff?
The putting the arms out.
I mean, imagine what would happen in the Abbott and Costellos, where this monster, he's just crashing into stuff.
He puts his arms out and clomps around. That's a thing now.
Yeah, that is a thing. But we are getting to the end of the movie. Yeah, there's fire that has been set on, and he eventually burns down. And it's this epic, as we said earlier, it's this epic, pan down shot into the window as he's burning and the things are all coming down. It's honestly a great final shot. And then also there's this last shot where we have,
Elsa and Eric?
Yeah, Elsa and Eric are walking into the sunset with the matte paintings doing it. And I was like,
yeah, it's a little over the top. It's total whiplash too, because you're like, la da 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 da.
Yeah, it is a very nice end shot. What have I not mentioned? I remember some things. Oh yeah, when Chloe Epstein is carried out of the house by Frankenstein's monster, she is a burrito. For the whole scene, she is a tiny burrito, and that is honestly adorable.
Wrapped up in the blanket, she looks like a little burrito.
She's a burrito.
Yep.
She is a literal burrito, and it is adorable because she's just in bed with the blanket, and it is a burrito.
She does live. They don't take out her brain, so that's at least good. Take her back to her dad.
I also noted down Visceria. Or Visceria instead of Visceria, or however
it's Visceria.
It just sounded a little weird. Or wasn't that the name of the village? Visceria?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Visceria,
Yeah, that's funny. Funky Face I think that was Frankenstein's monster, I guess, had a funky
Yes,
face.
he did.
And then the lightning machine had swirls.
Yes, and it was very loud too, very very loud. You
And that scene was very very loud.
You can't hear yourself.
But,
hear yourself
yeah,
thinking.
that was a fragmented summary of this movie, as if you were bouncing from segment to segment of Frankenstein's monster and going, "Oh yeah, this exists." And
but
then shambling along.
the very end though was
honestly,
nutty.
this whole movie was sort of nutty, but it was also pretty
Okay,
great
I'm
at the
glad-
same time.
I'm glad you
I'd
liked
say
it.
it's a pretty good movie. It is honestly one that you can watch again. Like, you can watch the movie again and then have a good experience.
And it's
while
so
watching
short.
the
You,
movie again.
you get the whole experience in a very short period of time.
Yeah. Although I think you said it should have been called The Other Son of Frankenstein. Although, again, they called it the Ghost of Frankenstein because of the one scene where there's the Ghost of
20
Frankenstein.
seconds at most.
And I originally thought it's, they're gonna resurrect the Ghost of Frankenstein's monster, because they do confuse the Bride of Frankenstein. They confuse Frankenstein's monster for Frankenstein, and so I'm like, the Ghost of Frankenstein, are we gonna see Frankenstein's monster's
Frankenstein's
ghost?
tomb, Frankenstein's hand.
Frankenstein's fur coat that he lost and is put on a milk carton because he needs it really bad. But honestly, yeah, Ybor got shot in the last movie really bad, and and somehow survived that. And a lot of times people don't survive.
Yeah, that's true, but they hung him, and he lived through that.
I know they hung him, but it's not like you can't. That's only like breaking of the neck. Like getting shot with bullets, those will be in you for weeks unless you pull them out.
That's true.
And that'll be painful. Yeah, but yeah, that's this movie. Next movie that we are doing is The Mummy's Hand.
Tomb. It's the
thank
sequel
you.
to The Mummy's
Yeah,
Hand.
see, we watched that, and just a little bit of a spoiler, it does not deserve the name Mummy's Tomb. So I keep thinking of it as something else, because I'm like, why is it named The Mummy's Tomb when...
Right,
and you'll have to see for next episode. And honestly, that one's really... I feel like it's along the same level as this one, but like the story, just the way it works is just a lot more... It doesn't work, it's timey-wimey. This movie, at least, is more... It's wrapped up more... It makes more sense. It's more cohesive. I feel like it's sort of a marriage between what it was previously and the ape.
Wow.
And I will clarify more what I mean later. But yeah, that was this episode on the Ghost of Frankenstein. Honestly, I have said a lot of
you gave it some positive stuff.
And I like the movie. And same with Son of Frankenstein. I like the movie. And the other two really likes. They are solid, definitely.
I like the three.
You could watch all
the
four of these and have a great time.
I have to disagree a little bit about the fourth one. I think that the first three, I think, are more have a lot more meat on their bones, so to speak.
Yeah, this one still falls off, but it's still likable. It's still cohesive. The writing was, it definitely
was entertaining.
Made
is what
some
you were
good
saying,
moves.
yes, right? That's a lot.
And
That's
it was
a lot
entertaining.
to say about that. It wasn't boring. It got to it, and it get in, get gone. That's okay.
It's likable.
Okay.
It's a mid. Yeah. But speaking of mid, the other movie, I will probably review it sort of the same, but you'll just have to see what we thought of it in the next episode. So yeah, see you then, and let's disassemble this thing and shoot lightning through
Zap.
it. To strengthen
Burn it to the ground.
The existing podcast. Burn it to the ground.
Have a good night. Bye.
All right. Grrrr. Thanks for listening to Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. Click here and here for some more excellent content. Hope you'll enjoy it. See you soon!